Hi YouTube, my name is Jack, and today we're going to try something a little bit different. 2020 has been a bear of a year, I think there is no disputing that, and we are all desperately hoping that 2021 will be better. And so I figured we could kick off the new year with a tarot tag, because this is a thing that happens on the internet from time to time, and it's always exciting when it does. So because it's the year 2021, and because there are 21 major arcana excepting the Fool, I figured we would do 21 questions about tarot for 2021. So, in this video, I'm just going to work through the 21 questions. I'll also write the questions in the description of the video down below. And I'd really invite you all to do your own sort of engagement with these, whether you want to do them in a video or in a blog post, or if you want to do them in one fell swoop or split them up into 21 different units, however you want to do it. This is just sort of me trying to reach out and have a little bit of community engagement on the internet, because I have been largely deprived of human contact for the past 9 months. So, without further ado, let's get into our 21 tarot questions. Number 1, what was your first tarot deck? So my first tarot deck was technically the Rider-Waite-Smith, but then pretty shortly after I got that, our house was burgled and my tarot deck was like wrapped in a yellow cloth, and I think the burglar assumed it was something of monetary value because it was sort of kept away in a special place. So my first tarot deck was stolen, and then the next tarot deck I acquired was a French playing deck, le jeu de tarot, sometimes also known as the tarot gauloise, which is just used for the game of French tarot. It's not a divinatory deck, so the cards are basically just like a regular poker pack, except with an extra face card, and the trump cards all just depict scenes from French colonial life in the New World. They don't have any particular connection to the divinatory meanings. Question number 2. What is the biggest mistake you ever made in a tarot reading? I wrote these questions. You'd think I would have answers prepared for them. I think for a long time, my big mistake was that I hedged way too much in tarot readings, right? I was so terrified of getting something wrong that I was really reluctant to make any kind of a concrete claim or prediction or anything like that. And for years, my tarot readings were really wishy-washy and kind of vapid and empty. So I'd say that's not one specific reading, but that's sort of the biggest mistake I made as a reader, for sure. Question number 3. Who has had the greatest influence on you as a tarot reader? So honestly, for this one, I think I'm going to say Benabel Wen. There are lots of readers, of course, who have been incredibly influential, including authors I've read, both living and dead, as well as sort of members of my own coven, other readers I know, people I've swapped readings with and learned from. But Benabel Wen is her book Holistic Tarot is just this massive tome. I don't have it with me. It's back at my parents' house because I read it when I was a teenager. And she was sort of one of the first tarot authors I read who really sort of dug into more advanced techniques. And I remember reading her book and being like, what the hell is the opening of the key, and why have I not heard about this before? And I've had the pleasure to interact with Benabel online a number of times. She's a wonderful person. And I've just learned a lot from reading her blog and reading her books, and she has a number of courses available. She puts out a ridiculous amount of content, and most of it is free. So she's been a really huge influence on me as a reader. Question number 4 is share a spread that you love. So, This is potentially controversial. I actually kind of like the Celtic Cross. It's overused for sure, and there are a lot of situations, particularly if I have a more direct question that I'm asking. If I'm asking, like, what is the outcome of situation XYZ, there are a lot of spreads, both pre-existing spreads or spreads that you can make up for a situation, that are better suited to a given question. But in cases where I kind of just want to see what's going on, when I don't really have a particular question, but I just want to check in, I actually get a lot out of the Celtic Cross spread, so I think I'm going to go with that. I also, honorable mention to the opening of the key, as I mentioned in the previous question. It's stunning, it's magnificent, there's nothing else like it, but it takes a lot out of you. And I don't always have the energy to do a full opening of the key spread because it's like 5 tarot readings in one. Question number 5 is, how does tarot intersect with your religious and spiritual beliefs and practices, if at all? So I am Wiccan, for those of you who don't know, who are just stumbling across this video. I read tarot for years before I was Wiccan. So I grew up as an atheist, and I started reading tarot when I was maybe like 11 years old. And about the time I left for college, I started to realize that I was a person who needed religion in my life. I think fundamentally, one day we'll be able to put people under a microscope, and there will be 2 kinds of people, right? There will be the religious people and the non-religious people. And I grew up thinking I was the latter. Turns out I was the former. And for a while, sort of before I found my way to where I am now with Wicca, I really craved sort of religious expression and symbolism and ritual, and I didn't feel like I had a framework to do that in, and so I used my tarot practice to sort of supplement that. And I had, I've blogged about it before, I had a whole devotional practice involving tarot cards, where I more or less treated the major arcana the way that you sort of approach deities in polytheistic practice. And that's no longer really where I'm at or what I do. Nowadays I tend to just sort of engage with the tarot as a divinatory tool. But it was a really important step for me on sort of finding my way to where I am now. Question 6. What is the best question you've ever been asked in a tarot reading? So this would have been many years ago. I was doing free online readings for either the Free Tarot Network or the Free Reading Network. These are the 2 free online networks that the American Tarot Association runs. And there was someone who like popped in, and it was just great because this was a client, never met him before. And he asked me for a reading because he was working on a novel and he wasn't sure what should happen next. And he just like wanted a tarot reading to help him figure out where the novel was going. And just like the amount of creativity involved in that, and the ability to, just play with tarot in a very sort of low stakes situation where like no one has been cheated on and no one's life is, on the brink of ruin if they make a bad decision. Like it was lighthearted and fun and just delightful. Question number 7, going the other direction, is, what is the worst question you've ever been asked in a tarot reading? And, I think for me, the worst questions are the non-questions, right? The worst questions are where you get people who are like, I think tarot's all bullshit, but if you want to give me a reading, you can, like they're doing you some kind of, big favor. And they're just sort of sitting there waiting for you to impress them. And I don't know, that I can do those readings, I have done those readings, I never enjoy those readings, right? Because there's a weird amount of pressure involved, and on top of that, there's just sort of this feeling that, like, they're not really invested in it, right? They don't really want to be there, and so it's confusing to me as to why they're asking for a reading in the first place. So those are the questions I don't like, right? Question number 8 is, what deck do you use most often right now? And my answer to that is probably the Golden Universal Tarot. So for the last year, I did sort of a deep dive with the Thoth Tarot. And I did a year of reading almost exclusively with that. And I got so much out of it, so much more than I had expected to get out of it. And I really am. I'm a convert to the Thoth system now. But I've been taking a little bit of a break from that, and I've been working with the Golden Universal Tarot, which is just a beautiful deck. It's a Lo Scarabeo deck. And here, I'm going to try to figure out video editing because I'm very bad at that, but hopefully I can cut this and then like go get my deck, come back, and show you. All right, I'm back. Hopefully, in post-production, I have figured out how to edit the video so that you don't have to deal with sitting and staring at your computer while I walk away and find my tarot deck. But anyway, so the Golden Universal Tarot, it's a deck, it's all Rider-Waite style imagery, but let's see if I can sort of angle that. All of the cards have gilded backgrounds, So they're just shiny and beautiful, and it's very aesthetic. I very much appreciate this deck. And because it's a straight Rider-Waite clone, it's very, very easy to read with. It reads like butter, so that's been great. Question number 9. What card in the tarot deck is hardest for you to connect with? I think some of the cards I struggle with are the ones that feel just a little bit redundant. So, like the 7 and the 9 of Wands, it took me a really long time to sort of understand the nuance between the two of them because their themes are so similar. And similarly, like, I think I actually have a blog post about this somewhere, but like the 9 of Pentacles and the 3 of Wands have very similar energies to me. And so for a while, particularly in my first couple of years of reading, it was really hard for me to understand sort of what the difference was between them, what the nuance was that made one card, different than the other. Because you only have 78 cards in the pack. You don't want to sort of double up on your meanings. You want to have 78 distinct, card interpretations. So yeah, I think those are the ones that historically have been the hardest for me. Also, the Queen of Cups. The Queen of Cups is, I'm not a watery person by nature, and the Queen of Cups, I don't dislike that card, but that's a card that I don't deeply understand her. Right? There's a lot going on with the Queen of Cups that is just difficult for me to relate to. So, speaking of court cards, question number 10. Which card do you use as your significator? I know a lot of people don't use significator cards. I actually also don't really tend to use significators in reading, but I still think it's helpful to have a card that sort of connects to who you are. And a lot of the time I use the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is a very comfortable card for me, right? The Knight of Swords, particularly, right, I'm a PhD student in philosophy. The Knight of Swords connects very much with where I am in my life right now. Sometimes, sort of depending on the context of the reading, I will instead use the Page of Cups. That's more of an aspirational thing. That's more when I'm doing sort of meditative work to try to bridge over and connect to the Suit of Cups, which is historically harder for me. And yeah, that's less about sort of who I am and more about who I'm sort of working on becoming, the parts of myself that I'm working on getting to understand more as I do the perpetual and agonizing work of being a human. Question number 11. Share one special technique that you love for interpreting the cards. So this is a technique, it's one of my favorite things to do, and I think I learned it first from Kim Huggins in her book Tarot 101, which is a lovely book if you haven't read it. And it's reading with the missing cards in a run. So if you do a reading and you have, the 4 of Wands, the 6 of Wands, and the 7 of Wands all pop up in your reading, but you don't have the 5, then in addition to the fact that you have the energy of the 4, 6, and 7, in addition to the fact that those are present in the reading, you also have a really significant absence of the 5 of Wands. And so that can tell you something about the energy that's absent from the reading, the energy that's missing from your reading, and sort of the thing that either your querent is not acknowledging or that your querent needs and sort of needs to reach out for and try to bring into their life. But I have used that technique. I've loved it ever since I first read about it. And it's a really wonderful thing. Question number 12 is, what's the most innovative reimagining of a tarot card that you've seen? I am probably going to go... This is maybe a little stereotypical, so bear with me, but I'm probably going to go with the Death card from the Shadowscapes Tarot. For those of you who don't know it, it's a painting of a phoenix. It's just a beautifully rendered painting. That's a visually stunning deck. But it's just, it so cleanly captures the meaning of that card, right? The death and the rebirth all in one moment with the phoenix. And I've had that deck for years and years and years, and it's still just, I think, one of the cleanest and simplest and purest interpretations of the death card that I've ever encountered. Question number 13 is, what's the hardest thing about reading tarot? I mean, the hardest thing about reading tarot, I think, is really putting your money where your mouth is, right? Is trusting yourself enough, or at least for me, right? Trusting myself enough to just sort of actually say stuff, to actually, make real claims and say, this is what's going on, or this is what's going to happen, rather than trying to sort of hedge and hem and haw and, rather than trying to insulate yourself from the possibility of being wrong. To be bold, to make a real claim, and to accept the possibility that you might be wrong. That's hard. That takes some gumption. And it took me a while to be comfortable enough with tarot that I was willing to do that. So, question number 14 is, why did you decide to start reading tarot? So the answer to this is that I'm a huge James Bond fan. And in the horrifically racist James Bond movie Live and Let Die, which is like James Bond does blaxploitation. It's a terrible movie. But Jane Seymour, in her feature film debut, plays a tarot reader who works for the bad guy. And I was just so enamored of her, her character, but also the idea of like reading tarot and being able to predict things and so on. So I really, really wanted to start reading tarot, and I convinced my parents to buy me a deck, and then, as I've previously mentioned, that deck was shortly stolen from me. So, but that's how I got my feet wet, for sure. Question number 15 is, share 3 tarot books that you'd recommend. All right, so this is, I'm going to say, I'm going to say Holistic Tarot, which is Benabel Wen's book. I've already mentioned that. Just because that's a really good book for readers at a wide range of experience levels. There's a lot of the beginner information and descriptions of the cards and things like that in there. But there's also really, really interesting advanced information about things like the opening of the key or some more complex Golden Dawn techniques. And I think anyone can get a lot out of that book. It's a really wonderful book. Benabel combines some of her esoteric Taoist practice with her tarot practice. And so there are some things like the associations of elements with the cardinal directions in the seasons, things like that, that I diverge from her on. But there's just really good information in that book. And Benabel is an academic sort of person, and so that book is cited up the wazoo. And if you want any information on sort of where she got her ideas and where her sources are, you can track that down. She really helps to point people in the direction of further reading, which is wonderful. Book number 2 that I'm going to say is 78 Degrees of Wisdom, because it's a classic. It's a tarot book that everyone should read at one point or another. Rachel Pollack is one of the undisputed authorities on tarot reading. And yeah, her book remains the gold standard for reading tarot to this day. And book number 3, I'm vacillating between 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card by Mary Kay Greer and something, I don't know, like one of the sort of classic 19th century texts, like a Golden Dawn text. I think 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card, also a phenomenal book. You should read it. Because Mary Kay Greer, like Rachel Pollack, is just sort of an icon of the tarot world. But I'm going to throw in The Pictorial Key to the Tarot by Arthur Edward Waite, just because that's sort of the source of so much of standard tarot imagery and divinatory meanings and things like that. And it's a really important book. And I think so many other books, so many books that were published in the 20th and 21st centuries are, not that this is a bad thing, but are sort of recycling the divinatory interpretations that Waite gives in The Pictorial Key to the Tarot. So, question 16. How are you working to deepen your tarot practice right now? So I have been doing a lot of sort of close meditative work with the tarot. Currently I'm doing some really intensive work on the court cards. I've sort of last year I finished up with my deep dive into the Thoth tarot. I'm probably going to go back into the Thoth system and do more work with it. I've just purchased a copy of the Ultimate Guide to the Thoth Tarot, which is a fairly recent book out from Llewellyn. So I'm really looking forward to digging into that. And yeah, I think just I think for me a lot of it is sort of meditating and writing and really just trying to connect with each card individually on a really close and profound level. You know, path working is an important part of this, but really just trying to understand each card in the deck as a world unto itself has been a lot of the tarot work that I'm doing right now. So, question 17. Which suit in the minor arcana, is your favorite, and why? So I'm gonna go with the swords, and I know that's an unpopular pick, but I like the suit of swords. Part of this is just I'm a very intellectual person, right? I like to think and analyze and talk, right? That's who I am. And so the suit of swords makes sense to me in a lot of ways. But I think part of it also is, the swords get a bad rap. Understandably, right? There are a lot of hard cards in the suit of swords. You have the 3 of swords, you have the 5 of swords, you have the 7 of swords, and the 8 of swords, and the 9 of swords, and the 10 of swords. Like half of that suit is full of really just painful cards. But I think people sort of fail to acknowledge that so much of why that suit is painful is that it's showing us the ways that we get in our own way in life, the ways that we make our own lives harder, right? With our sort of expectations and anxieties and the things that we think that sort of pin us down and cause us pain. And I think those are really important messages to be able to hear in a tarot reading, because otherwise you can't make your life better. So, question 18 is share one trend you would like to see in tarot publishing. So this could go either way. This could go with tarot books or tarot decks. I'm gonna take it as tarot decks. I wrote the question, so I can decide what it is. But like for anyone else who chooses to participate in these 21 questions, take it whatever way you want. But I harp on this a lot. I would like more diversity in mainstream tarot publishing. There's really no excuse for decks still to be coming out that only have white people in them. For one thing, it's just really frustrating to be reading for a querent who is not white, and to have sort of a limited range of options in decks that actually represent that querent, where they can see themselves. But secondly, I love to wax poetic about how tarot encompasses the whole range of human experience, and that's why it's such a perfect, complete divination system, yada, 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 yada. And boy, it makes it harder to do that kind of tarot apologia when the whole range of human experience is only represented with white people. Come on! Please. There are some really wonderful decks out there that deliberately try to show a greater range of diversity. Liminal 11 is a tarot publishing company that does a really wonderful job about prioritizing this. The Modern Witch Tarot and the Cosmic Slumber Tarot are both recent decks from Liminal 11 that really make a point to be more diverse. You also have decks like the Dust 2 Onyx Tarot, which I don't read. I own it. It's a beautiful deck. It's not for me. It's really, that's a deck that was made by black people and for black people, and I bought the deck, I looked through it, and I decided that it just wasn't meant for me. but it's a stunning deck. There's also Yoshitani has a really wonderful deck called the Tarot of the Divine, which incorporates folklore, mythology, and legends from all around the world, and really makes a point to be global about it. So there are some wonderful decks out there, but I wish there were more. So, question 19. Rider-Waite-Smith, Tarot de Marseille, or Thoth? Which do you prefer and why? So even though my current deck of choice is a Rider-Waite-Smith based deck, I actually do prefer the Thoth system. And I'm surprised by that. I never thought I would be a Thoth reader. And there are a couple of reasons for that. For one, I'm a Kabbalist. I like Kabbalistic imagery and symbolism. Kabbalistic systems make sense to me and are comfortable to me, and so an explicitly Kabbalistic deck like the Thoth deck is just very, very easy for me to read. For another thing, I love Art Deco, and so the art style of the Thoth Tarot just always captures my attention. I think the cards are really stunningly beautiful. And I don't know, like, this is kind of dumb, but it's really helpful that the minor arcana are titled in the Thoth system, right? So the Three of Discs is called Works, the Three of Wands is called Virtue, and, like, it makes it easier to read the cards when they have a title right there that tells you how to interpret them. I find that I have to do a lot less work when I'm reading a Thoth deck, as opposed to sort of reading, well, sorry, I pulled a card at random and it was the Three of Swords, which is very visually evocative. But if I'm, hang on, as opposed to sort of reading something more in a Rider-Waite-Smith style, where you have to rely a lot more on imagery and context, and I don't know, there's a little bit more work that needs to be done, which is not a bad thing, right? I love reading Rider-Waite-Smith style, and like I say, this is my deck of choice right now. But I think as a system, I actually do prefer the Thoth, which, you know, I'm as surprised as the next guy. Question number 20, we're almost at the end. What's the greatest lesson you've learned from tarot? Oh, shit. Okay, my computer is low on battery. I'm going to go get a charger. I will be right back. And once again, hopefully I can do magic and cut this out. And I'm back. Sorry about that. Question number 20. What's the greatest lesson you have learned from tarot? I think for me, the biggest thing that I take away from tarot, at least right now, is that everything is cyclical, right? Things sort of grow and mature and then decay and fall off and end, and you know, when things end, something else begins. And that sounds so trite when I say it. That sounds like such sort of empty new age hogwash. But there is a truth to it, that like there is an element sort of beyond the silliness that really resonates with me, that I really, really love. So yeah, I think right now at least that's sort of the biggest lesson that I'm finding in tarot. And the last question we have, question number 21. Pull a card to forecast what 2021 is going to be like for you. So fingers crossed. I'm really, really hoping that I don't pull the Hermit here, because I've had too much of quarantine this year. So I'm going to shuffle one more time, and then we'll pull a card and see what it is. So my card for 2021, my forecast for this upcoming year, is, hey, the Page of Cups. So I mentioned previously that this is a card that I sometimes use as a significator for myself, more to talk about sort of the things I aspire to, the qualities that I'm trying to cultivate in myself. So it's nice to see that that work is going to continue in 2021, and I'm going to sort of continue to get in touch with my softer, emotional, artistic, and creative side. So, thank you so much. This is a longer video than I normally try to make, but 21 questions is a lot. I hope you enjoyed. Please, please, please feel free to participate. I would love to see people engaging with this, because like I say, I miss having community. I miss people. So if you want, I don't have Instagram, unfortunately. I'm secretly a very old man, and I don't trust the internet. But you can share videos on YouTube, or you can also tag me on Twitter with the hashtag 21tarotquestions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what people have to say. Thank you so much, and May 2021 be a much better year than this one was. Bye, everyone.